Hello traders, this is my morning recap video and I had a very light trading session this morning. Um, I did at the open try to get some SPY puts or SPY calls for a potential reversal pattern, and I saw it wasn't going to work out, so I chucked them. I also tried some Microsoft calls today, and I was having all kinds of problems with Thinkorswim, so I finally just chucked those even too, so I just called it an early day. Okay, basically this was where earlier last week I had planned this was my target for this week, and wouldn't you know it, that's exactly where we came down to. We're fighting the 20 SMA on the 30-minute chart. We have been pinned here all morning long. Here it is noontime. Europe's finally closed, and we do have big time earnings hitting the markets tomorrow. I kind of think we're going to bleed higher in the markets, but it's hard to say. I mean, the buyers are just absolutely shut down today, okay? So just keep that in mind. We are off of a significant resistance or a support zone, which like I said, I called out even last week. So, um, but so far the buyers are just absolutely shut down. Okay. The cues here. This is what worries me going forward into the late afternoon here. We literally got down below. This should have acted as support on the cues. And instead of acting as support, it's acting as resistance today on the cues. So the cues are really pinned to the upside today. So that's what concerns me. We have these mega star tech earnings hitting the market tomorrow. And this thing's pinned under resistance so far today. And so that's quite concerning going forward into the afternoon. I'm thinking the cues are going to probably fade to the low end of the range than instead of the higher end of the range. And so that's just something to keep in mind going forward here, trying to push your longs into the rest of the day. Okay. I don't know if I got these drawn out yet or not. IWM, we came off some nice support. This thing, the Russell seems to be doing better. We are getting a breakout move here, so that might be a leading indicator for the other markets. So keep that in mind. This is from last week. I can delete that. Drawing. And so, but at any rate, we have a trend line here. Russell does seem to be catching a little bit of a bid here. So that might be a good sign for the other markets, so keep that in mind. Okay, on my ETF watch, FXI is by far the volume winner today on the put side, and that's your Chinese internet or your Chinese ETF. And so if you go and check your chart out right here on FXI, and do a little zoom in here. Let me put this on a daily time frame so you can see it better. See what we have here? We have a breakaway gap on FXI below resistance on the monthly, okay, on very bad news. So this is a bad news zone for FXI. Prices were completely and totally rejected in this price zone. So basically, by going down inside of this next fib fan level, you would think we were going to get at least a potential trading zone down here for FXI instead of a rocket move back to the upside. So keep that in mind. China's closed for the rest of the week, and buyers have just been absolutely shut down in this gap. So my bias is that FXI is going to fade to the downside, assuming the U.S. markets don't pop it back up. Okay, on our NASDAQ composite, on the put side, you got Wynn Resorts. And I have a Wynn Resorts just absolutely got devastated today, and it's coming back up. There is a weekly VPOC, untested VPOC that we tagged, and we're going back up through right now. But personally, given the severity of the news in China, I would think the 119.30 one area is a much more valid support level for Wynn Resorts. So in my opinion, this little bounce here, you've got to be extremely careful that it's just a temporary short covering squeeze, and we are going to see a continuation in some selling pressure here. And keep in mind, when we're trading last quarter, it was trading right in this zone. Okay, and now we have an absolutely horrible headline. I mean, this is really not taking anything out of the stock relative to last quarter's trading zone. So I would still think the downside is much more probable. Now on the call side today, Beyond is catching a nice little bid. Options are up decently today. More restaurants are taking Beyond Burgers in onto their menu. So kudos to them, I'm telling you. I'm really thinking Beyond is probably looking for the 153 52 area if these markets were to stabilize here. So this here is, in my opinion, the most bullish chart in the markets as of right now. So keep that in mind. I mean, probably for the rest of the week. So if the markets were to turn, Beyond is definitely a stock we want to be shopping for to the upside, because this consolidation area, this is exactly where it's wanting to go. It's pretty made itself pretty clear that's the range that it's searching for, the 160 area. So keep that in mind. That's another $30 higher if this market does catch a sustained bid. And I want to say kudos to anybody taking the SPX lottos that expire today. You're looking at 400% for today's gains. I mean, that's quite impressive on this move downward, and it was much higher earlier. So, very congratulations on your trading in the SPX lottos for today on the weekend holdover. So, you know, that's a pretty darn impressive gains for a one-day move to the downside. Okay, you remember how I mentioned that we were relatively, the volume was not migrating up with price on the XLK. That's your technology sector. Well, we're coming down to our 20 SMA today on our technology. And the volume still is not migrating up. I mean, we're getting closer. After today, it's getting closer to migrating after all the volume hitting at this price point. But we still have not migrated to a higher price point. So I do want to point that out going forward. And once I saw this, I started researching a little bit, and then I looked at Visa on this, using the same thing. Look what's going on with Visa. Similar situation. The price point, the volume point of control has not migrated up with price on Visa. So I just wanted to point that out going forward here. Let me zoom this out here. Auto zoom. Hate the way this thing does that sometimes. And we're going into earnings tomorrow after, or later this week after close. So just keep that in mind that price has gotten elongated away from volume value, and so that was one that really caught my eye, was Visa, because I saw that happening as I was wondering what was really causing the distortion. And if you look at your XLF today, it came right down to that next monthly value point of control, and it's finding a little bit of responsive buying today. So that is a good sign that the XLF does seem to be finding trend support and volume point of control support today for supporting this market for potentially higher prices. So that is a really good positive thing to be seeing here. And always check out our bonds. We do have some auctions, bond auctions hitting today, so that could be drive a positive or negative force for the bonds. It looks like we're still marking at near the highs of the session on our bonds, so not giving much of anything up on our bonds, unfortunately. If you go on our ZNs, I actually drew out some levels on the bond futures, and if you come down here, Wouldn't you know it? It must have got erased. Here, let me go out my daily. Well, it's not showing on the daily. 1 second here, and I'll take care of this. Yeah, 1 second. Well, unfortunately, on my bonds, I can't look back far enough for the lower time frame VPOCs. My charting won't quite do that. So we are above the monthly VPOCs on our bonds, and so just keep that in mind. I'm just saying we are in the overvalued territory for the monthly on a monthly basis. Okay. Okay, the next on our VX futures, we do have one more untested volume point of control for the going into all these crucial earnings numbers hitting the tape this week. So just keep that in mind that the markets tend to want to tag those, but we did manage to take out two VPOCs today. Untested VPOC. Well, no, actually, we actually tested those the 7th of this month. So yeah, we actually have not even broken up and retested a VPOC after this massive sell-off on the VIX. And typically on a massive sell-off like this, you would generally think that you are going to at least retest a significant level to the opposite right end of the range. And considering we haven't actually done that yet today on the VIX, that actually makes me lean a little bit more bearish for the overnight session. So just keep that as on your in the back of your mind, thinking ahead here. It looks like Microsoft's finally lifting off here a little bit. It's trying to poke its head up, but like I said, those Qs are right underneath a significant resistance area. So you know, these pops in these right here, you know, so far today, we'll see how the Qs go, but they were looking pretty darn negative when I first started this video. And maybe that all changed. Yeah, it looks like right here, right now, that we might be running up to test that significant resistance on the Qs. So that could be a very bullish scenario. If we get above this last swing high here, we could have a nice little rally into the close on the technology. So just keep that in mind that if we get above this swing high, it's a critical zone that the markets could see sustained buying into the close, going into these major earnings hitting the tape tomorrow. Apple's back above resistance as we speak, so could very easily be retesting the highs of the session on Apple. Facebook. Facebook was actually holding out better than most, so keep that in mind. Facebook tagged right at the open of the markets, or right in the pre-market session. Facebook tagged support and immediately found buying and has not come back down. So of all your major FANG names, Facebook's got the most relative strength so far today. So that is something important to know. Baba, I know the people in the room, or Kathy and stuff, was playing Baba this morning. Let's see how it's doing. Yeah, continued sustained bid so far today. Rallied up, and we got another leg up in Alibaba. Like I said, I think what's going on with the Chinese FXI, that it's kind of pinned at these price levels. But you know, with all these earnings coming out, it's hard for me to determine that for sure. And the people who love Tesla, of course, it is catching a breakout move as we speak on Tesla. So keep that in mind. I had a serious support here for Tesla, and it managed to hold out here all day today. And now it's catching a responsive bid. It's probably going to be 562 by the close if the markets were to hold up here. So just keep that one on your watch. Google, had a price target reiteration to the upside today. Looks like it's catching a small bid here, approaching day highs. So keep this one on your watch. Came right down, tagged to the penny, my support area, and has found responsive buying ever since. So if you'd have got it down here, you've already got a $10 move on $11 move on Google off the lows if you'd have been watching that trade. And I'm going to finish off with Amazon because earnings are this week. It came right down to the 200 SMA. This trend line I got drawn as we speak. We are trying to push out above that trend line on Amazon here. So this thing could have legs if this market continues to take off today. So just keep this in mind. We are in a bullish market, okay? And like I've said before, we've just basically taken a little of the froth out of the massive move up in these markets. So there are bulls sitting on the sideline wanting to buy these markets. So they're just waiting for the technical signals to do so. So you just keep that in mind. You know, you really don't want to push your shorts in the overnight session. And maybe my net assessment on FXI could be in error, but generally what happens there with those fib fans, that's generally what happens. But we've got so many earnings hitting the markets, it's hard to say that's actually going to be the case. Okay, that's all I'm going to say for today. Please leave comments and like the video if you like it. I gave the best overview that I can think of. And as we speak, Amazon's breaking today highs. So it looks like the shorts are, we could see a short squeeze here. So just keep that in mind. If you look at your VX, let me check at the VX right real quick. It might be strike here. Yeah. We don't days in yet, but it looks like we're starting to get some cracks in our volatility. So just keep this in mind here. We, and keep in mind the highest point to do volume for VX right at the day lows. So keep that in mind. They were willing to sell right at the day lows on the overnight session. Intraday, they were trying to migrate it higher. So this thing can really turn real quick on the dime. So, okay, thanks a lot.